All the boys had a crush on Miss Stacy. Everyone in our class knew that. Even the PE teacher, Mr. Mitchell, and the janitors would stop in their tracks whenever she walked past them in the halls. Principal Collins, who claims he's a happily married man, always found an excuse to hang around wherever she was. So, I'm not saying I don't want her to be my private tutor. I'm just saying I don't see why I need one. See, I've never been bad at math. Not at all. In fact, I'd go so far as to say I'm pretty good at it. If we were talking history, perhaps, or French, that would be a different story. But math was always the one subject I knew I could ace. So you won't be wrong in assuming I was surprised when Miss Stacy handed me my grades last semester. That day, she'd already given the rest of the class their grades, but she specifically asked me to stay behind, saying that she needed to talk to me about my recent performance. When she said that, I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Great, I thought. What have I done now? An F? I exclaimed as soon as I got the piece of paper from her. That's why I wanted to give it to you in private, Cody, she said. The way her eyes locked on mine gave me shivers. But how? I asked. Miss Stacy took out a bunch of papers from inside her desk drawer and fanned them out in front of me. Remember these? She asked, waiting intently for my reaction. On the table were my test papers. Each of them either a D minus, or an F. It stung. I knew all those tests were A's, B plus at the very least. I double and triple checked those papers when I got them. Even compared them to my classmates who had similar answers. I let it go because I thought she was just power tripping because I know she has a weird crush on me. But failing me for the whole semester? I stormed out of Miss Stacy's classroom and skipped to class for the rest of the week. That Saturday, as I was having an afternoon snack, the doorbell rang. I got up to get the door, and what greeted me almost made me choke on the chicken nugget that I was still chewing. Miss Stacy? I managed to cough. What are you doing here? It's weird seeing your teacher outside of school, looking like a civilian. Weirder still is when your teacher reaches up at your face and wipes the piece of chicken that managed to cling to the side of your lips. I quickly wiped where her finger touched and tried to hide the blush that began to crawl up my cheeks by looking down. She giggled. I'm here to see your mother. Cody, is she home? She asked. Yeah? I said. My stomach began to churn. Oh, I bet she's gonna cause trouble because I haven't shown myself all week. Mom! I called out into the house. Mom! My mother appeared from the basement, her hair all askew and her arms laden with freshly done laundry. Oh, jeez! She exclaimed when she saw Miss Stacy. I'd forgotten you'd called. Come in, come in. Miss Stacy smiled at me and stepped into the house, giving my mother a quick handshake. My mom swiftly discarded the basket of clothes on the floor and patted her hair down before leading Miss Stacy into her study. They were there for quite some time, talking about who knows what. So I decided to listen in. I just wanted to make sure she wasn't talking trash. 'Cause if Mom found out I'd been failing, she'd lose her mind, and I'd end up massively grounded. As I pressed my ear as close as I could to the gap between the door and the wall, I realized I'd just decided to listen in at the right time. He needs a tutor, Miss Miller, I heard Miss Stacy's voice say. I agree, said my mom. When can you start? Next week Saturday would be perfect, my teacher replied. At that moment, my hand slipped on the door and I fell forward, pushing the door to the study wide open. I heard my mom gasp and Miss Stacy spun in her seat. What do you think you're doing, Cody? My mom thundered. I stuttered. I stammered. I didn't know how to defend being caught eavesdropping. And so I said, I don't need a tutor, Mom. I always get A's. You know that. My mom held up my grades. Clearly not, she said. I spent all week sulking. At school and at home. I almost dreaded Saturday. I'm not saying I don't like that she has a crush on me. I'm just scared of her being in my room. I didn't get any sleep at all that Friday night. The moment I heard the doorbell, I ran downstairs. I was in such a hurry that my wet feet almost slipped on the stairs. I got it, I called out as I rushed to get the door. one hand rubbing a towel on my head, my hair still dripping from the long cold shower I just took. "Cody!" Miss Stacy flashed me a big grin as I let her in. She planted a kiss on my cheek as she took her shoes off and planted her umbrella by our door. "Nice to see you've come to your senses. You ready for some math?" "Can't wait," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm, as I rubbed the place where her kiss lingered for too long. I couldn't decide whether I liked it, or if I was annoyed by it. As soon as we got to my room, she took my desk and placed it in the middle of the room. And then, she moved the chair. When I sat down, she made her way to my bedroom door and closed it. My heart began to beat faster. Is she gonna kiss me? I thought, half wanting it to happen. Instead, Miss Stacy gave me a bunch of tests to write. She plopped a thick stack of paper onto the desk, handed me a pen, and sank back onto my bed, watching me with those piercing green eyes of hers. I gulped my nerves down and started to write. After about 20 minutes, Miss Stacy started looking bored. She got up from my bed and began pacing around me, watching my sums like a hawk hovering around prey. She then stopped right in front of me and bent down to have a closer look at my work. She tucked a stray strand of red hair behind her ear. As she did so, I had to look away. I could feel beads of sweat running down my temples. "Miss Stacy," I began, still unable to look my hot teacher in the eye. "You got it all wrong here, Cody," she said in a voice I've never heard her use in the classroom. "Where?" I asked. "Right here." She took my face in her hand and directed my gaze at a calculation on the test papers. She was right, of course. I was getting too distracted. "Sorry," I mumbled under my breath. I was about to correct my mistake when she tutted. "Here, let me show you how it's done." No, you don't have to. I know where I began to say, as she rounded the table and made it look like she was about to show me exactly how to write it. But when her hand touched the top of mine, I'd lost all train of thought. "It is," I finally managed to finish. I wasn't sure if I felt happy or insulted at first. The way she guided my hand as if I didn't know how to write. I mean, I'm legally allowed to drive, but the more she held my hand, the more I got into it. She was close to me. I could smell her flowery perfume, and her cheeks were almost touching mine. It wasn't long, though, before she started annoying me again. After I'd finished the test she gave me, I was confronted with a booklet she'd written herself. I spent about half an hour staring into those pages, but none of them made sense. I scratched my head with the tip of the pen and began to say, "Miss Stacy?" "Yes, Cody?" she said with a low purr. The way she looked at me made me pause. Nothing," I said. Another hour passed, and I still could not make sense of the problems in her booklet. My patience was wearing thin, and so was the pen's plastic as I'd spent the last hour biting my frustration into it. That was when I decided to give up and tell her about it. "These things don't make any sense." I dropped my pen onto the desk, irritated by the smile that grew on her face, as if she was mocking me. "They don't?" she said as she plopped onto my bed. All formality gone as she lay down on her stomach and began playing with my pillows. She gave me that weird look again. "No, they don't," I told her. "You're absolutely right. They don't," she finally confessed. I gave her a confused look. "But why?" I asked her. "I just thought it'd be a good idea to pass the time," she said with another giggle. "Honestly, Cody, you're great at math. You're my favorite student, and I don't think you need any more tutoring. But I think you already know all three of those things," she added with a wink at the end. "Then why are you so bent on tutoring me?" I burst out. Miss Stacy twirled a lock of her hair around her finger and bit her lip. And then she looked me straight in the eye. "I don't know. I just like watching you do math, Cody," she said with a smirk. That late in the afternoon, the sun shone low through my bedroom window and made Miss Stacy's hair look like it was on fire. That distracted me for a good minute from the fact that she'd failed me for no reason but to spend time with me. On one hand, it was very flattering. On the other, she didn't need to fail me. And that's when I told her. Or that's what I was trying to tell her, but instead, What came out of my lips were, uh, why? What? Miss Stacy let out a hearty laugh that made her double up. She clutched her stomach to relieve the stitches she looked like she was feeling, but after a few deep breaths, she stood up and looked at me in that funny way again. When I still couldn't gather my thoughts and respond to what she just told me, she bent down and ruffled my hair. "What's the matter, Cody?" Miss Stacy giggled. "Math got your tongue." I didn't really know what to think. First off, that was a lame joke. Second, I didn't know why I laughed. I knew she had a crush on me for the longest time, ever since she first subbed in for Miss Johnson, our old math teacher. When Miss Johnson eventually retired, Miss Stacy took her place as the youngest teacher in our school. Not to mention, she began attracting a lot of admirers from the student body, and the faculty alike. It was weird realizing that the prettiest girl in school liked me, and I guess I was really starting to enjoy it. Miss Stacy looked at her watch and asked me, "Did you have fun with math today, Cody?" I knew I did, so I nodded. Miss Stacy planted a soft kiss on my cheek and walked towards my bedroom door. "Then," she said before she disappeared down the stairs, "I look forward to next Saturday. Maybe I'll have to tutor you over summer break as well." And then she said goodbye with a wink.